Hey guys, my name's Emma Everett, and I'm a criminal justice and psychology major at ULM. And my career path is going towards forensic psychologist or criminal profiler. And there's a big question that goes around in our society today: is should we negotiate with terrorists? But there's an even bigger question: what even is negotiation? Negotiation is when you're trying to influence one's thoughts and their mind when they're trying to influence yours with a bargain or a trade. And it usually happens a lot with terrorists in other countries and our country with our government. Um, Terrorism, it's a really big problem. It has long-term effects that affect everything and anything. It really affects people that like to travel a lot because they're scared that there's going to be attacks from terrorists, stuff like that. It really limits people's freedom if you think about it. The question is if the government should negotiate with terrorists. It's been debated for a really long time, and some think it's beneficial and others not so much. Most have concluded that negotiating isn't necessary, like it doesn't need to happen because it doesn't do anything but affect our country. So I did some research, and a few facts that I found out. People have totally different opinions about this, and it's not just a one-sided feeling about it. But from what I've gathered, I've learned that the biggest reason as to why we shouldn't negotiate with terrorists is because it serves as an incentive for terrorists. And they'll keep on making demands, and they'll keep on trying to get everything they can out of us. And it encourages more terrorist activity. It encourages more attacks, more bombings, stuff like that. Negotiation is kind of like a sign of weakness, because why do we need to ask somebody for something with a bargain? Why can't we just ask them for it or tell them to give it to us if they owe it to us? It really just, when you ask a terrorist for something, it's just seeking for destruction of our own country, and it's making us vulnerable for them. It would give them more power over us, I feel like, if you ask somebody for something when you really don't need to ask them for it. They'll tend to always come back for more. If you just ask them once, they'll be like, well, they're vulnerable to us, so if we have something, we can negotiate with them and we can get in their country, and it would be easier for them, or they would think it was easier for them to get towards us. Terrorists rarely ever own up to their word. They will do these bargains, they'll do these negotiations with us, and once it's time for the deal to happen, they don't do what they say they're going to do. They don't give us what they say they're going to give us, and they just get their own way, and they get what they get from us, and then they usually do an attack. And that just really harms our country when we could probably get the same goods from our own country instead of getting it from them for cheaper or whatever. It discourages others from seeking peaceful, positive resources to problems, like using diplomacy instead of violence to achieve our goals. Most of the time when we do negotiations, there's usually a war that causes violence and death for our own country and theirs. It also emboldens other groups to do similar tactics, and when they don't get what they want, and they have a good chance of having their own pieces turn into something bigger, and more members of the terrorist groups will come over, and it'll be an even bigger attack or a bigger disaster than it already needs to be. For example, the thing with Osama bin Laden and us, that is a really good example of why we should not negotiate with terrorists, because he promised a lot of things that did not happen, and he attacked us. And he did not own up to his word at all, and that's just something that our country learned from, that we should not ever negotiate with people that we don't need to. And I mean, there's been a lot of other instances where this has happened to our country, and I feel like we have learned our lesson, and there is a rule now in our country that says that we cannot negotiate with them or do any bargains, or even if they hold somebody for ransom, we cannot give them money to get them back or anything like that, which is, I think that's pretty good for us. because even though we might be losing someone, we're not losing a whole lot of people or a part of our country by being vulnerable and giving people money when they don't need it. In conclusion, negotiating with terrorists has no good that comes out of it, really, and it always backfires on our country instead of them. There are so many facts and reasons as to why it does not work and all the negative outcomes that comes with negotiating with the terrorist. We always must face the consequences